Well, hello everyone. Here to show you right here is like the student package is like a top bot site for a top bot, for the brand new gradebook. And you see right here is I went ahead and duplicated some of the paintings right here that I went and worked right here with Illustrator, and I worked a little bit with Photoshop as well. And thinking about Mike, while I was working these, I kept thinking about necessarily to where that trying to duplicate some of these files right here just to show the different channel effects, and as well as working with the hues and saturations and different color effects and stuff like that. But the main reason why I put this together right here is talking about right here is like with the grade book, and one of those could be like for any improvements and any changes that happen within about 3 or 4 years or so of education. And if anybody were thinking about while you're in school and just thinking about from whenever you started and then until now till present, and thinking about that it may not seem like a whole lot of things have changed. One of those could be it's like, well, yeah, that you didn't have much money to begin with, and on the other hand too, you knew very little about the programs especially. But what you see right here is like with the grade book that from my years of study and education, from back in high school, of course, like we say, the answer seemed like it was zero, because yeah, I did not have a grade book like this right here to where that yeah, you were able to I had a portrait of myself, but then it was like a black, it was like done with a black warrior pencil. And I don't know if anybody here has heard of any of those art supplies, such as a charcoal pencil or a black warrior pencil. But you have right here is work right here is like a painting right here. I went and put these together right here with these different photos, and like anybody that more likely wants to where that as a student to where starting to where that they are given an assignment, and then they sit down and study about what they need to do, and things get complicated and a lot of challenges like I mentioned before. And I guess the best ways of how to handle that is to where like understanding about for what all that needs to be done. And I'm sure any student may say that if you come in that situation to where it gets complicated to where you're just going to quit, and like, well, quitting's like the only option, between quitting and cheating or whichever. But on the other hand, that I guess about the testing, about what we all know, and it seems like that we may pay a real big price tag either way, to where that if we don't do the work, and then not always on time, or like you're not showing in enough effort or something like that for our work. But let's just say on average to where that you have right here of these right here will be examples right here of my artwork. And I'm like anybody that more like wants to where that since about a year has passed, and thinking about from what all that we do know, and you're like Warren to where oh, come on, it ain't nothing, all I did was just fiddle around with the tools or something. But there is some type of skill I'm sure we can pretty much learn almost every day. And you're like Warren to where since you started, it seemed like it was all about the money. It was all about that yeah, that they just needed to collect some source of information, and that was it. But let's just say if the future package would include, like, let's say, like the school that went to, as well as for the work that we were doing. And it may come to a time to where that we had drew these lines right here as an example right here of like anything such as for what we do. And we may think necessarily to where anything that we're doing that you're like, well, really, I'm like, if it gets to be challenging, what are the best ways, any advice for anybody to where if they are working on something and it gets too complicated to where that they just want to set it to the side and forget it? What does that really show anyway? I'm like, that there are what you call some ideas to where somebody looks at the work right here and thinking about, what, with this picture right here, this right here will be like, not just my baby picture, but this picture right here look like it could use some adjustment maybe in the background. And if I want to go ahead and write the initials, and then as well as for like anything else creative that I want to do with the picture though. And we're like Warren to where really does all of our childhood memories need to be posted in our grade book. But I'm like, well, I guess that's pretty much optional from the student. But let's just say that with the grade book right here is like my grade book, of course, from back 10 years ago. only contains so much. It's like a lot of times it's about really about the performance, about how well you did in class, and about the grades and how well you studied and those type of things. And really, I'm like, any career that we may get one of these days would they be looking for anything beyond, for what we were doing in class, such as to where that maybe one of our favorites. And we might say that, yeah, well, I didn't have a favorite. I'm like, I was not, the favorite student in class. I did not have necessarily a favorite subject. I did not have any other favorite, but I'm thinking that more likely that it seems like the truth of the matter is to where that yeah, that the students, they try to stay focused and flexible for anything that they're working on, and they try to show their best work. And whenever they think about, like whenever you're going to school, that you're necessarily thinking about, that, yeah, the way people treat you sometimes, and the way that they say what's required, what the rules are, those type of things. But then on your hand, it seems like to where necessarily thinking about, like the whole purpose about what the work goes is to where that, just because that yeah, something's not done right or some sort, and that you're like warned to where that, yeah, with the grade book, anything that you're doing, and anything that's said and done, stuff like that, on the grade book. And you're like warned to where that, we may warn to where, what do we usually see when we find out that, yeah, that well, you didn't complete the assignment, or you didn't do the work. So, how is it that this other person's able to understand about what all you do, and as well as somebody else? So really, that like I mentioned before, it seems like it's all about the introduction to where, yeah, whenever you started, that of course that your eye vision was only about a certain measurement, and then especially you only had so much to start out with, and etc. And then like anybody say that, yeah, what's a good example of the word cheating? Especially, I'm like, anybody say, yeah, well, maybe if you're using somebody else's work, even though if you have the permissions, you use somebody else's work, maybe to get a step ahead or something like that. They say you use an example. But then on your hand too, that you're thinking about, I'm like, really? I'm like, cheating basically, you say, goes by against the rule to where that, anything that you're doing, and you likely think about, yeah, does 50% of every student, maybe think about, trying to cheat at least once, just because, they want to get the attention. And like the type of attention I'm talking about is like, pass a test. I want to, I said I was, I would get an ice cream, or I would, the person would shake my hand if I passed it. And so I'm like, well, I'll go ahead and cheat this time. But I would encourage anybody, it's like, do the best you can. Really, I'm like, the type of education degree that is earned basically is measured by the importance, is like, for what all we do in class. This all was not put together, of course, just because, yeah, the magic word. So the magic word is please. You're like saying, well, please, 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 forgive you. But on the other hand, too, please, please, please forgive me. But then on the way I think about, though, just to teach us a lesson about the whole purpose about, for being growing up and being a student. Is like our job basically means is to where, yeah, does that usually mean to where putting more work on the table? More work, more time, more stress. That's all what it's all about. It's like put your right hand in it, and then you shake it all about. And then you do the hokey pokey, and you turn yourself around. But on your hand that you have right here is like learning how to do PDF file experience. And I'm sure anybody probably say, yeah, well, I didn't know that at the beginning, as well as how to do typographic, type work. I didn't know how to do that. I learned, basically from the class. So a lot of these things that we may not realize, that we may not been taught before. And you're like, Warren, to where, how is all this put together right here? And you're like, Warren, to where, oh, I was just messing around. But on your hand, too, there could have been something that was used to show improvements. So really, I'm like, I'm sure within the next 4 years, anybody probably say, you'd like to see some, improvements. And I'm sure that the student grade book, future package to where it would show is to where that enough experience, and then enough skill to where that, the amount of hours that we're putting into work, and just thinking about, for what makes, say, for the great packages, like future packages, understanding about the whole part about it's like for being designed.